Welcome to Stout Conversations, where every week we sit down with creative thinkers in the craft beer industry and beyond. Your hosts, Ken and April, live and work in a 24-foot RV, traveling the country in search of great stories around a great beer. Join them this week as they talk with owners and brewers from Bayou Teche Brewing in Arnaudeville, Louisiana, where they are not only proud of their beer, but their heritage and the beauty that surrounds them. Only 140 miles northwest of New Orleans, this brewery, located right next to the Bayou Teche, is worth a visit.
So then you're more than prepared for our surprise questions.
Okay.
No.
Questions. We didn't operate. Yeah, wait.
It's Brewmaster.
You're the brewmaster.
Brian. What's your last name?
My last name is Broussard. Brian Broussard.
That's how perfect is that?
It's
There's probably no W in it, but that's okay.
There's I'm originally from this area, and I just moved back. And I remember when I was a kid, half the phone book was Broussard's, and there was a lot of kids in my class in elementary school. They were all Broussards. I didn't know any of them.
Broussard.
But we were related, but it was just there's so many Broussards.
Broussard's to the Cajun, though, it's like the name. It's like our George Washington. He's the guy that led the fight up in Nova Scotia. And then he led the Cajuns down here. Beausoleil, there was two Broussards, two brothers. So everybody wants to be related to the Beausoleil side of the Broussard.
Yeah.
His brother, I don't remember his name. No one does.
Because they don't want to be.
I'm pretty sure I'm related to the brother.
Well, I can tell you right now, we're going to apologize from the start because we're going to butcher every word from around here that we try to say.
I butchered it too. It's like I've lost my. I remember they made us take French class. It was mandatory in first grade.
Here? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They still have French immersion. Like you can sign your kids up. About, I think it's a quarter of the kids in this part of Louisiana, we call it Acadiana. About a quarter of the kids learning French. Like this little town of Arnaudeville, I think it's 60% speak French at home. But it depends. Like in Lafayette, it's probably like 20 or 30. Baton Rouge, it's probably.
So Arnaudeville, how did you end up with the brewery here? I mean, this
Well,
doesn't seem like a big community where.
two reasons. It's our family farm that it's located on.
Okay.
And so we've been here, our family's been here since 1780 in this area. But when we started the brewery 10 years ago, you couldn't have a tap room by law in Louisiana.
Right.
So it didn't matter where you had your brewery. You wanted the cheapest spot possible. Every drop had to go to a distributor. And it wasn't until like about 3 years ago they put in a tap room, and they were like, man, we should have built in the city. But it ends up being all right because people travel out here, to get away from everything. The laws are very different when you look at all the states, the southern states, and then Utah. Kind of really put a hindrance on breweries open. It was tough that first 4 or 5 years where everything had to go to a distributor, and still is tough, but it was really tough then.
Has it really changed things for you guys out here having your own tap room?
Yeah. For all of the breweries in the South, I think it's really kept the lights on a lot of months. But plus, you get your customers here. You don't have to depend on 2 other tiers to get your beer to the customers. So
That's what I've read is like to get your beer out in the market, you're distributing to stores and stuff. It's like I think it was something like for every beer you sell in a tap room, it's like you could sell 3 3 beers in the distributorship to make up 1 sale in a tap room or something like that.
Closer to 6.
Yeah,
Closer to 6.
Probably closer to 6.
So you almost have to sell a 6-pack out in distributorship.
The other fun thing about the tap room is we can make a whole lot more other beers that the distributors don't want to carry. So we have to have fun.
Yeah, this is the playground, right?
Like before we had a tap room, it would be brew up fun beers and drink them ourselves. Now we can sell them.
Well, before the tap room, if someone really liked our beer, we'd have to send them to a gas station down the road to buy it.
Yeah.
And then also, to Brian's point, we're now we just did a green tomato beer. It was Byron's idea. It was delicious.
Oh, wow.
There's no way a distributor picked up a drop of that.
Oh, yeah. You're never going to see that on the shelves.
And that's like unique to the southern area too, like here.
Yeah.
I would never see like a green tomato beer in Denver, for example.
You did a few weeks ago
Well,
when we brought it there.
GABF,
that
right?
was like a beer festival, yeah.
How'd that go?
It
It
was
was
blast.
great.
It was blast.
Yeah, it was fun.
I think our 5th or 6th time, something like that. Love going up there.
It's a heck of a party.
Yeah,
We missed it this year.
and you can see what everybody's doing.
Oh yeah.
It's not, you don't have to read in a magazine, you just walk around, kind of see what other breweries are doing.
It's pretty intimidating. And all the beers start tasting the same by the end of the day.
Well, yeah. It's funny because you think, like, especially we've only been there as just patrons, so it's like you think, oh, an ounce of beer, no big deal. But you do that 30, 40, 50 times, it adds up to a lot of beer. And everybody at GABF's bringing their 18% beers.
Right. Yeah.
12%, which you guys have an 18% beer, I know here. I tasted that just a minute ago, and I'm going to butcher it again.
Oh, Techeticles.
How can you butcher that one? That's a great name.
Testicles.
Brass
testicles.
testicles. Brass testicles.
Yeah, we did a regular,
I
we
love
have
it.
a regular Techeticles that was 12%. And someone said it wasn't high enough, so we figured, well, gotta be 18.
Do you have a lot of return visitors here to the brewery here, or do you see a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
new people coming in?
We do, we have, I know we have a lot, but there's a couple, we have some Germans that come every year.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They're really big into the accordion, so this is the place to come in America if you like accordion.
Yeah.
So they
this
come
is
every
like
year.
a vacation destination for them?
Well,
kinda?
Europeans get like 6 weeks off,
Right.
and so they'll come and
They'll travel all
stay in
over.
this little town and just kind of make little road trips. around.
Okay.
A couple of, maybe a month or two, we had some Germans that stayed 3 days in our RV in a parking lot here.
Nice.
So I,
Which we're doing tonight. We're staying in your RV.
yeah, we
You
do
guys
that.
Yeah, you guys are Harvest Host.
Yeah,
Harvest
we
Host
love
members
it.
too, so.
I love
Which
that.
is
So
awesome for
when
us.
we
We
signed
love
up,
it, so.
yeah, when we signed up for that, we get to go to all these different breweries.
That's actually what turned us on to you guys here, and it's Bayou Teche, right?
Right.
Bayou, not Teche, it's
Teche.
Teche. Bayou Teche. Trying to get the lingo.
And the Bayou Teche runs right, if you walk down this road right there, you can see it.
Is a bayou actually a river, or is
It's
it?
a slow-moving river.
It's a slow-moving
It's a
river, so it's
French-
kind of the swampy.
No, it's
No,
a river.
no.
It's a river.
It's still a river.
It changes tides with, current direction with the moon.
Really?
Yeah.
The river, for the most part, only goes
We'll
one
keep going,
direction.
yeah.
And
Or
that's
bayou
that's
can
Byron, who's off camera right there.
You're not supposed to talk to
He's
the
kind of
camera.
shy.
Change direction.
And the Bayou Teche is the biggest one in Louisiana.
Really? Okay.
It's by far, it's the most culturally significant because all the old Cajun towns were built on the Bayou Teche. When they first got here, they didn't have roads or railroads, so they all built on the Teche. That's how they got around.
Oh yeah.
So all the old town, Arnaudeville is a real old town, I think 1760 or something like that.
Yeah, we tried to read up a little bit.
It was one of the oldest towns in
Yeah, where
Louisiana.
all the Cajuns first arrived, it was a town called St. Martinville, kind of south of us on the Teche. And they built a town there. It was a military post and like the church was there, and so everybody kind of spread out from St. Martinville. But it's all along the Teche, the original Cajun settlements.
Bayou Teche, the brewery. We were reading online. You started in a railroad car.
Yes, we're still right over there. We used to do a
Really?
business incubator now.
So that was. How did you come
Yeah.
up with the idea to do it in the railroad car originally?
We
Was
had-
it just like
we had
I need a
those
shelter?
stories.
Put
At the time, there
our
were
stuff in
only
there.
three packaging breweries in Louisiana. We were the fourth.
Really?
So there was Abita, had been around 30 years, and then Covington would have been the next one. And those days they were called Heinerbrow, and then NOLA, and we opened a few months after NOLA. So everybody else was kind of focused on New Orleans, and we're out here in the swamp, right? So we thought this little rail car was going to be plenty. Like, hey, we're going to make enough for 5 or 6 restaurants. And within 2 or 3 months of opening, we couldn't keep up. So we had to start building the brewery we're in now.
So how big is the brewery right now? Obviously, you started really small, probably on like just like a 1-barrel system or something.
Yeah,
back there.
exactly, 1-barrel system.
And now, where are you at now?
We have a automated 20-barrel brew house, and we're about 12,000 square foot.
So how much do you guys crank out a year?
About
roughly?
6,000 barrels. So we're pretty small in the grand scheme of things in the
In the
nation.
grand scheme,
But in Louisiana, we're kind of in the middle.
yeah.
Right smack dab.
And how long
What's
have you
the-
been
Oh,
at the,
sorry.
Not that long. I've only been here a few months.
okay,
But I've worked at a lot of other breweries. So this is
starting to feel like home?
yeah, I feel like I'm back home.
Okay.
Like this was meant to be.
So there are people who can't wait to get back, so you leave for a job. We call them boomerangs. You always boomerang back because the food's amazing, right? There's no better food
The
than
food shows right here, right there.
We had some visitors from New York one time. It was one of my favorite quotes. The lady goes, "When I landed in Lafayette, I thought everybody in this town has a posture problem. And then I realized they're just all full. People easier. They know how to cook. I mean, every guy, every woman, everyone knows how to cook. So we like food, we like dancing, drinking, gambling. So it's a fun place to be. And so even if you're not from here, people who visit, they like can't wait to get back.
Well, we noticed that was a big thing on your website too. Is like when you talk about your beers, you talk a lot about what foods they go with, and I mean there are other people that do that, but you guys really embrace the like pairing beer with food, which is
If you were sitting
not
down
a big selling point for a lot of breweries.
We
you know, a
live
lot of
to
small
eat,
breweries,
not
so.
eat to live here.
And you eat your beer.
You ever sit down like
Drink.
at a dinner with a bunch of, like a Cajun family? They're eating like this amazing meal and talking about the next one. Seriously, so like, you know what we're gonna cook this for supper? While they're eating lunch. So it's all about food here.
So how did you guys decide that you wanted to start a brewery? Like, what were you doing beforehand, or where
So-
did that crazy idea come from? Because it's not cheap.
So I was in the Army for about 10 years, and about 6 of that was in Germany. This was like the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s, and it was eye-opening. You know, every beer was delicious in Europe in general. You know, just fell in love with it. Had a good friend whose wife was from Bamberg. We went and drank some of that smoked beer in Bamberg. So like right away, I'm like, and over there it's all about beers treated equal as wine. It's different than here. It's not like something you bring to a baseball game. It was like you have it on the table, you know. And so I just thought, man, we've got the best food ever in Louisiana. So it'd be nice to kind of do something like that here. So we started, me and Byron and my other brother Darcy started homebrewing. And then one day I think we drank too much of the homebrew. And we, maybe 8, 9 years of homebrewing, decided to open a brewery.
Because you have a lot of freedom and creativity with homebrewing, and I know like us, we've never done the same
Right.
recipe
Yeah.
twice because you want to
But
experiment.
that's us on a production level.
That's awesome.
I mean, our
That's
distributors
awesome.
hate that. They want the 3 beers they can sell a lot of.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
it's like every month we're like, we have ADD.
I love it because I like going into a brewery to see different things on their board.
But what hurts you as a home brewer, and it's not the same as far as the process. It's somewhat the same, but you
Yeah.
use different chemicals and different kind of processes and things you would never do on a home brew scale because you're just throwing away 5 gallons.
Yeah.
And it's a hard transition. I mean, it was hard for us, and there's some breweries that came behind us that would call us up. Hey, what are we doing wrong? You know, and so it's not that you're brewing wrong, but it's kind of you're looking at it wrong. You're not looking at as far as a process as a home brew. You're looking at it as a production brewery.
Mhm.
Right.
So you have to do things somewhat different. Like the chemicals are much more dangerous. A lot of
To a degree.
learning the processes as a production brewery is the hardest part of transitioning. It's not the work or anything else. It's just that there's different things you need to do than as a home brewer.
I actually never was a home brewer. I started off, my first day ever in the brewing business was in a production brewery. And I didn't start home brewing until 10 years after that. And I took, the way I had the equipment, I bought the equipment to homebrew, I made some, out of kegs, and I did it exactly like production brewing. So I'm like turning around homebrews in 2 weeks, and all my homebrew buddies are like, how do you do that? How do you do that? You have to let it sit for 5 weeks.
Yeah,
There's no
exactly.
way. I'm like,
I kind of see this maturation of, I guess, the craft beer industry in the U.S. is like, it's becoming a little bit more of that wine level that you said you wanted to bring back from Europe, where beer's equal to wine over there, and it's like people appreciate it. They have their own territories where everything's a little different,
Right.
kind of like you get with wines, where depends on where you grow the grapes and everything.
Yeah.
It's different.
I
And
love
yeah.
where America is going with the beer
It's
industry
cool.
because it's bringing it back to like Europe has always been. It's regional. We're going from being national breweries down to being regional. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
Why are we shipping things all over the place when it could be made there and we drink the local flavors?
I like
Just
how the
like
regional
local food.
styles have come out too, which even 5 years ago wasn't a big thing. But you've got like the New England IPA or the West Coast IPA or the Cascadian IPA, kind of based on a regional preference. And 5 years ago it was just IPA, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe a double IPA.
At one point it was like, what's the biggest hot bomb you can create?
Yeah.
And now it's like, there's so much more subtlety to it. Nice rye IPAs give a different bitterness than a hot bomb, or a black IPA.
Well, I'll give you 20 years ago when I started brewing in Louisiana, I'd never heard of an IPA, and I was a professional brewer.
3 years. Our first beer was a pale ale, and people were like, "Oh my God, it's too bitter." It's like, no, it's not 130. We don't want it.
Yeah.
I want hops rolling over my face.
But now it's changed again just recently, because now it's that East Coast IPA that everybody wants, the New England IPA, which is, it's not the IBUs, it's just a ton of hops on the back end. It's not a bitter beer, it's just it's super hoppy, but not. I actually, as much as I'm not a fan of super bitter beers, I like my big sweet beers like this one. But I actually miss the hops from the front end.
A friend of mine, he's a sales rep for another local brewery, and he's like my age. We're in our 50s. He said the thing he liked about IPAs, it took you like 10 years of working on your palate to figure out how to like that beer.
Yeah.
And he goes, now you got these like 22-year-olds running around saying you don't know shit about IPAs.
You haven't been alive long enough to appreciate an IPA, man. I like that. Yeah.
Well, you'll come out on that saying, "Oh, it's just a really good, straightforward IPA."
Well, and part of that's we were in New England, or up in Maine and around Portland and stuff about a couple months ago, and it's like, man, everywhere we went, brewery to brewery to brewery.
Every brewery.
And it was like, one brewery was entirely IPAs. They
Right,
had
yeah.
10 beers, and they were different IPA
They're
variations,
different IPAs,
and almost all
yeah.
of them were hazy variety, or the New England style, whatever you want to call it. And it was just like, okay, I need something a little different.
That's what I love about here, where we are here, is we have every kind of beer you can think of.
Including
I think I know what has curbed the industry standards today is a lot of the up and coming breweries that are doing well did not invest in the filtering equipment or anything like that. So, the hazy beer is acceptable now. It's 5 years ago. I remember 5 years ago, if you held up a beer, if a bartender held up a beer and something was floating in it, there was something wrong with it. In Louisiana, at least, it was your beer had to be perfect. And now it's just. And I'm not saying it's not perfect, because I love not filtering beer. But,
You could sell a Hefeweizen.
Right,
really?
You bring a Hefeweizen to the market, they'd be like, there's something
Something is wrong with this beer. Yeah. Now it's acceptable.
which is good.
Yeah.
It is. I love
I'm not
Hefeweizen.
complaining.
Well, and people get educated to the different styles and realize there's a whole world out there,
Well, it's kind of gone the other way. I was talking to Brian about this recently. We had a beer show and we poured one of our beers, and it was hazy. You couldn't see through it. Lady didn't smell it or taste it. She's like, "Oh, this is delicious." The original brewery is now a business incubator, so we let people use it rent-free. They just pay the utilities.
Oh, really?
And so they get their business off the ground, and either they stay or they move on. Or it's our third business in there.
Oh, really?
The other two have moved on.
So Art's in there right now, roasting coffee.
And it's phenomenal. We love Art. So he roasts the coffee for that beer and brings it over. And it's kind of custom roasted for our different beers. And we'll kind of work tasting samples of the test batches, and one day say that's the one.
We have a few beers with this coffee. I think the most popular one is the Waking Dead, which is a coffee Kolsch.
Okay.
But we had some people from Berlin here last week. And we were talking about European beer. And I started talking about, yeah, you guys got Berliner Weiss. That's only tourists that drink. No German drink that.
Do you guys have any crazy plans for the future? Do you like kind of where you're at?
We have a lot of plans for the future, but they're all secret. You have to come back and do this again.
Okay.
We would love that.
We have a lot of plans.
We never wanted to be a beer factory, though. From our beginning, we wanted to be a place we came had a good time and become a tap room. So we always have music, we always have food, always great beer. So that's our plan, is just to offer more there. But kind of just that, that's our vision, just to keep doing what we're doing. We don't want to be in 100 states, maybe be a factory. We just kind of want to keep doing our 30, 40 beers a year and put some music shows on. We do wild crawfish during the season, so that kind of stuff.
I think as a regional brand or even just a neighborhood brand, if you're in a small community, if you're happy brewing around that community, I think you can be that neighborhood bar.
I think the guys in Louisiana that have opened like in the last 3 years, we had probably 10 or 12 breweries until about 2 or 3 years ago. And we changed the state law with the tap rooms. So those guys now can open a brewery in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's huge. I mean, we've got like 14 in New Orleans right now, neighborhood breweries.
And if you're happy, if you don't need to make millions.
Right. And you don't.
If you just
you're
like to brew
overhead
beer
yeah.
and you like your friends to come in and drink and make new friends all the time.
Like, what would you consider like living a stout life? Like, how would you define
Well, you
that?
have to be in Acadiana.
Okay.
You gotta move.
Really, everything that's great about life happens here. You've got to be here if you want to live a stout life.
I love it.
And it's all the important stuff: family, faith, food, gambling, drinking, and all the important stuff. Dancing.
You gotta,
When you go to festivals anywhere else but Acadiana, like you go to New Orleans or Baton Rouge, and there's a jamming band on the stage, you see a bunch of people like this, right? Or
yeah,
you go around here, and everybody's dancing. I mean, you will see in a field people dancing. So it's a special place. I think those are the things, along with a great beer, makes a stout. I will tell you one of those stout stories. When I first started drinking craft beer, when I got out of the Army, so this was 93, 94, we were at a bar, and everybody ordered their something light or something ultra.
Yeah.
And I said, well, bring me a Guinness stout. And one of the guys I was working with, he goes, man, you're always ordering that Chinese beer over there. This is the least Chinese beer in the world, man.
There you go. Stout life. Drink Chinese beer from Ireland.
Your stout life.
my stout life, I just do what I want, and I ended up being a brewer and a musician, so I can't complain.
Sounds
That's how it works for me. Somehow I've managed to draw a salary from both. It's totally, everybody's nicer here, they're happier here. Just like when you go somewhere, you're dancing. They make you move. You don't worry about you know how you look or what's going on. You're happy. Everybody's happy here. I go to the grocery store here, and I don't know a soul, and it takes me 20 minutes to get out of the place because somebody's striking up a conversation with me, and I'm not complaining. It's great. Whereas in other places, and I travel all over the country a lot, so it's like here is, I think this is the friendliest place in the country. Y'all need more beer.
We do.
Yeah.
There are new episodes with new conversations every Sunday night. Be sure to subscribe and click the little gray bell so you don't miss out. We'd love to hear from you, so please leave us a comment below. Not only will this help us get found in the search engines, but it will also help us create a better experience for you, our viewers.